Hey, you cool cats, it's day 133 of a screenwriter's journey. Let's see what's going to happen today. As you know, being a faithful watcher or viewer, hopefully a subscriber, I haven't asked people to subscribe lately, but my channel is not doing hot. It's in desperate need of your subscription. So, as I was saying, I've spent several days in a very short a very limited amount of script. Mostly the first, I think, 18 pages, and then I seem to get in a little funk and go back and make some tweaks. And so what I'm really trying to do, not for the first time, is figure out Lexi and Holly. I mean, this scene really needs to speak a lot to their relationship because we haven't seen a whole lot of them together. Obviously, at the very beginning, Holly drops Lexi off at the foster home, and then we don't see him again until 12 years or whatever it is later. So the question is, oh my gosh, so embarrassing. How much, as I've said before, how much did they not really hang out, but how much has Holly sort of mentored her? Has she been a role model for her? Has she been in and out of her life? And that's obviously a question for the script, but that's also a question I'm asking myself, and more particularly, what would make it most interesting for the audience? And not just for the audience, for the story, what would make the most drama, result in the most conflict? Because I had the thought, as when I was writing not in the script, but in the story, that Lexi was super insecure, that she'd bounced around from house to house, Holly had been the only constant in her life. And I've sort of gotten away from that. And I'm half thinking at the time, do I go back to that? Because on the other hand, that's a little bit cliched, so I wanted to try to make her a stronger, more grounded person, Lexi, that is. And I don't know if that's a good idea, if it's going to work, how that would change the dynamics of their relationship and when they, in this scene, because as I said, this and the preceding scene are basically what we know of them. And the one guy, I think I mentioned, the guy who read the script and kind of not forced me to, but whose comments led me to pretty much rewrite this. His advice to me always is that the characters have to seem real enough that the audience would know what they're doing when they're not in the movie. I didn't say that exactly right, and I'm not trying to quote him, but hopefully you can understand that, because his criticism of my writing, as I think I've also said, is that it just seems like the characters are just there filling spots that I have to fill to contrive the story I have to contrive. And I think I've also commented on, yeah, but how else are you really going to do it? I think in a TV show, and his world is TV, but he's written some scripts for movies. I don't know that any have ever gotten made. I think that's somewhat different in TV because, you're going to spend 13 episodes or 10 these days, or maybe 22 these days, or 24, 26 in the olden days with these characters. And so you've got a lot more time to work with them. And on a sitcom or something like that, you literally see them at home. So it's just sort of a slice of life, especially on sitcoms, or they don't have to be sitcoms, but comedies in general. You're just kind of eavesdropping on a part of their life. And to me, in a screenplay, you can't really do that because a lot more's got to happen. You've got to pack a lot into 100 and whatever pages. You're going to have 100 to 120 minutes generally. So while I mean, I totally appreciate and more or less understand what he's saying, and I think it would be awesome to do that. But can you really do that? Can you set up? I guess that's what you do in the first 10 pages, right? You set up their world and then you take them out of it. I just, of course, keep going to Marty McFly. We see him at school. We see him getting in trouble, so we know what kind of guy he is. We see Luke Skywalker in Tatooine and where he lives with his uncle and all that kind of stuff. So I totally get it. And hopefully this, maybe not this version of the script, but some version will have that. I mean, these are the two main characters and they're talking, they're not really going through their daily life, however, because some event has already occurred. So the question, I guess, would be, do I need to have one of them or both of them give a little bit more? And when I say they, of course, I mean me, give a little bit more of their everyday life. So I've been thinking a lot about that and whether I should do it, I could do it, blah, 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 blah. So having said that, I don't know what page this is. I guess it's page 16. That I'll dress Luke up like him and you'll never know the difference. Hate that line. But this, of course, is after the Lexi and Holly conversation. Now we're in the bedroom at Lexi and Abby's house, and they're kind of having a, sister-to-sister conversation. Worst case, your birth mother. Lexi has two moms. Lexi has two moms. That's a good line. I don't know if I kept that or not. Whatever floats your boat. I do like that because that's really the bottom line that Abby has said. Look, you either go and she's a real creep, or you you hit it off with her and you sort of become either best friends or mother-daughter again or something. And now Lexi's line at the top of 17, very clever way of letting us know that she has had, maybe not therapy, but she's maybe seen some sort of guidance counselor or something a little bit more than a guidance counselor, someone to sort of help her through some times. So now that I've introduced that idea, I'm trying to see if this got any legs that I can take that anywhere. And that's, for me, a lot of the writing is you just see where it takes you. Does it lead you down a dead end? Does it reveal character? Does it, get the plot going, raise the stakes, all that kind of stuff, ticking clock, etc.? Or does it just lead you down a dead end and it's a bunch of yakety-yak conversation and then you just got to cut it out? How are you going to find out unless you do it? You're not. You can't do that. I am convinced, and maybe some people use their outlines and treatments and they get into writing dialogue and everything, and that's where they figure out if it's going to work. But I'm convinced, until someone proves me, well, it's not really wrong, but changes my mind, I should say, that you can't do all of that in your outline. You can't make a paragraph that says, Lexi and Abby talk about her past or something. I mean, you can write that, but then you have to explore it, and you've got to write it out. You've got to, I know you have the agenda, but how do they reach that point that you want them to reach? To me, you have to do it by writing your script. All right. Oh, look at that. The Daily Wire news feed. Interesting. Okay. So this is obviously saying Lexi is texting her and saying, okay, let's go. It's funny. I keep spelling acts with an E and without an E. And I guess they're both technically correct, but every time I do it one way, it feels wrong. But I guess with an E maybe looks a little bit better. Won't even be a contest. That I don't know. That's not very good. I don't think that's a very good line. All right, so now what's going to happen? Holly has gotten the news from Lexi that she is going to go. And so what's Lexi going to do now? It's super important, needless to say, to have scenes logically follow another. So you've got A, and because A happened, then B has to happen because it's got to happen. And even if it is a twist and you figure after B is going to come C, logically, you are still going to get scene C, but it may be something different than you thought at the end of A because now you've introduced B. And as I've said before, and I'm not going to say that none of my scripts are this way, but I have read scripts where I literally feel like I could just, if every scene was on an index card, I could throw them up in the air. Let's say any given 10 scenes that are next to each other, I could throw them up, and wherever they would land, I would just put them together, and that's how I would read the script. And I feel like that's how some writers write, and I just don't understand how they can't move the story forward. They just sort of take a break sometimes. It's like an aside or something. It's like you're reading a novel and you come to some parenthetical information that lasts like 6 pages. And it's like, oh, by the way, I thought you'd like to know this. Or in the meantime, here's what's happening. And now certainly you can have parallel stories going on, especially as you get farther and farther into your script, or maybe that is your mode or modus operandi of storytelling. I mean, if it's especially probably if it is a romantic comedy or, a coming together of friends or enemies or something, you can have parallel stories right from the beginning. But I typically don't. That doesn't mean anything. But as it goes along, you're frequently cutting between it could be the A story, the B story, and the C story, or it could be 3 equally important stories. If you've got major characters doing this and doing this and doing this, I can think of many examples of my scripts where that is happening. However, one has to follow another logically. You've got to use the information that you just got out in a scene, and you've got to put that to use somehow in the next scene. And even if the same people are in the scene, I mean, you can still do that. What am I doing here? Okay. Operation Surgical Strike. I'm mid-20s. Takes her to foster age. The place the foster family checks with her and befriends her, but doesn't raise her. Holly tells her the truth around the main story unfolding. Holly finds out that she's being transferred to the position. So there's too much. Maybe he's the guy running retired after to a super. So now I'm getting some new ideas. Holly's either got to touch her. U.S. Marshal people. I must say, present day, which is January 10th, over the weekend, I emailed the Deputy U.S. Marshal who's been helping me with some pretty heavy-duty questions. She hasn't replied yet, which I don't expect her to, but I'm super eager to hear what she says. I was basically giving her some kind of story points and what would happen, do you think, based on this. So that'll be really interesting. Well, it looks like I ended day 133 kind of questioning myself and wondering, hey, should I go on a slightly different tact? So that sounds like a cliffhanger for tomorrow, doesn't it? Will I keep writing? Will I go back? What do you think? Or aren't you even watching anymore? So sad. Thanks if you are watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.